U.S. think tank says there are signs the country has likely resumed operations at a plutonium production reactor. That coming from the 38 North monitoring project that points to new satellite images showing the North's main nuclear site. Let's head out to Seoul and our Alexandra Field standing by with the details. Alex, what do these satellite images show?
Look, they're being closely watched and closely monitored by this group in the U.S., 38 North, and this group says that this shows that activity has resumed at the country's main nuclear facility. What they are looking at in that image that has raised the most concern is a water plume coming off of the cooling water outlet. That is a distinct sign, they say, that shows that the reactor there is operational, though they can't glean to what extent, what power, what strength that reactor could be operational at. But this is a clear step forward if you compare it to previous satellite images that 38 North had released earlier this month. Those images suggested to the analysts at 38 North that preparations were being made to make that reactor operational once again. At the time, we were seeing images of snow that had melted on the rooftop of some of the buildings, indicating that those buildings were being occupied for the first time in some time and that there was minimal heat at least. So these latest images showing that water plume are certainly a step forward, and this does raise concern. It does continue to raise awareness really for the global community in face of the fact that Kim Jong-un announced back on New Year's Day that the country was getting ready to test an intercontinental ballistic missile, which he said would have the capability of reaching the continental United States. The activity that's being observed by 38 North here is at, again, the main nuclear facility in North Korea. It's the place where analysts believe that the plutonium was made that has been used in previous nuclear tests, Samara.
So we're seeing this increased activity as President Trump has been in office for a couple weeks now. Tell us about, are there any indications as to how North Korea plans to deal with President Donald Trump?
It's interesting. It's the question on everyone's mind, of course, because you had Kim Jong-un coming out and making that statement that the country was getting ready to do that test on New Year's Day. That's when he mentioned it. No clear timeline on when that test could happen, but there are sources in both in the U.S. and also in South Korea who've indicated that they feel that, those tests, could be very well prepared for the next couple of weeks, for the next couple of months, that this is something that Donald Trump could face early on in his administration, an early test of this administration. At the time of Kim Jong-un's announcement that this test was being readied, President Trump responded by tweeting it won't happen, basically saying that North Korea wouldn't be allowed to do something like this. It is not clear yet what Kim Jong-un's move will be, when he could be ready to launch this test. But what you do have coming up is the fact that the Secretary of Defense, Secretary Mattis, is making his first trip overseas to South Korea and Japan this week. That is meant to reassure allies of the commitment of the U.S. To their longstanding alliances here at a time when those alliances have been questioned by President Trump, who was vocal on the campaign trail, raising concerns about the level of spending that the U.S. was doing on defense in South Korea. So this is certainly a tenuous situation right now. Concerns in South Korea about the possibility of a test, and they want firm assurances from the U.S. that they've got a stable and reliable partner. So everyone will be watching this trip from the Secretary of Defense later this week to see what kind of reassurances he's able to offer his allies here in South Korea.